The birth of Rome, between myth and memory. Before it was a city, before it had streets or kings, Rome was just a whisper. A story carried by firelight, told by voices we no longer remember. They spoke of wolves, of two brothers, Romulus and Remus, abandoned in the wild, not to die, but to be found. Nursed by a she-wolf, raised by shepherds, and destined for something greater. But even in the myth, there was pain. Romulus kills Remus, not for power, but to draw a line, to say, here begins Rome. A city founded in blood, not to celebrate violence, but to remember that nothing great is born without conflict. Rome was not made in marble. It was made in sacrifice, in doubt, in cold mornings and empty hands. It was not the gods who built it, but men who feared, who failed, who hoped anyway. And that is where the real story begins. Not with heroes, but with humans. Chapter 2. The villages before Rome. Before Rome walked tall among marble walls, it was no more than a breath. A scattering of quiet villages resting upon 7 hills. Homes made of clay, open windows facing the unknown, a fire burning at the center of the house, and the voices of mothers blending with the creak of wood and the footsteps of livestock. There were no maps, no visions of empire, just life, one day at a time. They planted seeds, fetched water, watched the clouds, and prayed the gods would not forget where they lived. The village, in that ancient world, was not just a place, it was a feeling. A feeling that someone was waiting for you. That your neighbor would share his bread without you needing to ask. That a crying child, even if not your own, could still stir a woman to sing. In the absence of kings and laws, the first rules of humanity emerged. Survival is not for the strongest, but for those who reach out first. From that fragile bond, a psychological wall was built. Trust. Trust that your hand would catch me if I stumbled, that my back would not be stabbed as I slept, that even in our weakness, we could become each other's shield. Before there were swords or soldiers, men sat in circles, speaking not of war, but of weather, crops, and the dream of a warm winter. And from these quiet talks came a greater idea than conquest. If we gather, we are more than individuals. Rome was not built then, but it was already breathing. In the laugh of a child playing in the dirt, in the song of an old woman stitching a winter coat, in the silent man staring into the fire, not knowing why, only knowing he was where he belonged. That moment, that small, quiet moment, was the real beginning. Chapter 3. Brotherhood and courage. First walls. Fear is the first architect. It draws walls, boundaries, lines in sand. As the villages grew, shadows lengthened. Shadows of wolves, of raids, of the unknown. A man returned with news of danger, another with tales of a raid. And so, the community gathered, not to celebrate, but to decide. How do we keep each other safe? They laid stones, shaped clay, built wooden palisades around homes, hearths. But the wall they created first was not of stone. It was brotherhood. They stood shoulder to shoulder, bound by shared breath, shared fear, shared responsibility. They learned the language of defense, signals at dusk, watches at night, a sacred rule, one for all and all for one. In the quiet circle by torchlight, they made promises to guard the weak, to share the burden, to never abandon. From this oath, small villages became bonds, bonds became towns, towns became a city, and this human bond is the foundation even greater than the walls. Rome's first fortress was never made of stone. It was made of trust. Chapter 4. The spark of law, Numa's wisdom. Not all growth comes from fear. Some come from wisdom. A generation passed. The city survived storms, raids, famine. But teeth and fire do not build civilization alone. Enter Numa Pompilius, the second king, a man of peace, not war. He sat under olive trees, speaking to priests, to farmers, to the heart of Rome. He taught the cycle of seasons, the power of rituals, the importance of rest. He said, "A city without soul is only a cage for bodies." He created temples to the gods, not as shelters, but as reminders that Rome's destiny depended on balance between work and prayer, between building and stillness, between the many and the one. With Numa, Rome learned that peace can be built as carefully as walls, that law is more elegant than armies, and that wisdom can hold together what fear has gathered. Chapter 5. The real beginning, a slow foundation. So here we stand, not at the gate of grand empires, but in a clearing, lit by dawn. Rome was not born in a day. It was whispered into existence by myths, struggles, quiet circles, and olive branches. It grew by simple acts, sharing bread, keeping watch, naming seasons, lighting fires. It taught us trust before power, wisdom before conquest, bond before empire. This is the true lesson of Rome. Not stone, but spirit. Not empire, but essence. When you feel small, alone, afraid, remember you are a whispered myth, waiting to grow. You are not Rome yet, but you can be the spark.